Donald Trump just announced his plan to send $5,000 Doge stimulus checks to Americans everywhere, and the news has gotten everyone's attention. And if you missed this announcement, listen for yourself.
There's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the Doge savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible, Elon. So many billions of dollars, billions, hundreds of billions, and we're thinking about giving 20% back to the American citizens and 20% down to pay back debt and pay down debt, which is, if you look at value, if it were a real estate balance sheet, the debt is tiny, but we still want to pay it down. Doesn't matter.
So, on today's episode, we're going to be breaking down this Doge stimulus package so you can know if and when you could be receiving your check in the mail. All that plus more on today's episode. What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of Tax-Free Living. My name is Carter Cofield, CPA. I have helped clients save millions of dollars in taxes, and the goal of these episodes is to help you save as well. But today's episode is actually not about tax savings. Today's episode is about actually making more money via these proposed Doge stimulus checks. So let's discuss these proposed $5,000 stimulus checks that Doge and President Trump announced a few weeks ago. So Doge is hoping to save over $2 trillion. Hear that with a T, $2 trillion by cutting unnecessary expenditures by the government. And they're taking 20% of those savings, which is $400 billion, and returning it to 79 million U.S. households. And that would mean that $5,000 checks per tax saving household, which is $400 billion, divided by 79 million. Okay? Now, I know a lot of you all are getting excited about these proposed stimulus checks, and rightfully so, because the last time we had discussion around stimulus checks was back in the COVID-19 crisis of 2020, and those stimulus checks actually helped millions of Americans who were struggling due to that crisis, and it helped them get through those tough times. But there are some things about this proposed stimulus package that I do want you all to be aware of. And then at the end of the episode, I'm going to give the likelihood, at least that my likelihood after research, on if these are actually going to be sent out and when these proposed checks be sent out. So the first thing I want to point out is that these checks revolves around Doge saving about $2 trillion in unnecessary government expenditures. But when doing research on the government's website, as of today, it says that Doge has only saved an estimated of $55 billion to date. So if the $55 billion is the official number on the government's website, then we are far away from their $2 trillion savings goal at this moment, which would mean to me that unless the government and Doge and Elon Musk comes up with faster ways to save money, these stimulus checks wouldn't be happening anytime soon, like not in Q1 and potentially not even in Q2, unless they just find some crazy ways to save money. Now, the next thing I want to point out is that the Doge checks are planning to be sent out to 79 million American households. But when I did my research, there are about 130 million households in the United States. So who will be getting left out for these Doge stimulus checks? And after further research, I think that it will actually be the low-income Americans that will be left out of these stimulus checks. And here's why I came to that conclusion. It says the only people that pay federal income taxes in 2025 would receive these Doge checks. And many lower-income Americans don't make enough money to pay federal income taxes. Like a lot of these people are getting earned income credit, child tax credit. They're not really paying money into the U.S. tax system. So about 1/3 of households would not receive this money. So unless this changes, we can see the people who need checks the most potentially not receiving them. So this was alarming news to me. but it's just currently where the state is with the proposed checks. And this could change. I'm just telling you all what my research showed. Now, let's take a moment to talk about how these checks could potentially affect the U.S. economy. So many believe that the Doge checks would do the same thing that the stimulus checks of 2020 did, which was cause massive inflation, like the largest inflation that we've seen in decades. However, James Fishbank, who is an investment advisor and who's been covering this Doge check story for probably one of the first people covering it, he explains that the Doge dividends is different from past stimulus checks because tax-paying households are more likely to save this money, to use this money to save or to use this money to pay down debt versus spending the money. The second reason is that most of the money is coming from direct savings. Remember, for every $5 that Doge saves, $1 goes back to hardworking American taxpayers. And when they did a poll, when CNBC did a poll, they found that about 70% of Americans said that if they were to receive the Doge stimulus checks, they would use it to pay down debt as opposed to spending it, which would be a deflationary activity versus an inflationary activity. So a lot of economists, including James Fishbank, think that this will not cause massive inflation because we all know we cannot afford another season of accelerated inflation because things are already too expensive, including these egg prices. Okay, so now let's talk about one of the most important things, right? Which is, what is the likelihood of these checks actually being approved and being sent out? So the first thing I want you to know is that the Doge checks would need bipartisan support for a Doge check stimulus package to actually be sent out. And according to Scarlett McGuire, who is the director of JL Partners, the support of a Doge dividend would need to be not only bipartisan. For those of you all that don't know what bipartisan means, it means that it will involve the agreement of a cooperation of two political parties that usually don't agree on much. So both the Republicans and the Democrats have to agree on this for it to get passed. And when I did some deeper research, what I found is that there is clear cross-party support for the Doge dividend. With Democrats strongly in favor of the idea, Americans believe that it will make citizens more likely to believe in the government because, you know, they think the government has been wasting a lot of money. And when I did further research, about 83% of Republicans surveyed said they're in favor of the plan. 58% of Democrats who responded also are in favor of the plan. And participants identifying as independent largely align with the sentiments to get this plan pushed across, demonstrating a lot of high appeal for these Doge checks to get pushed across the finish line. And personally, what I believe is that if these checks were to get sent out, it would help Americans, you know, get more belief in the government, especially after they've been wasting millions and millions and millions of dollars over the past couple, billions of dollars over the past couple of years. And I do think it will restore American trust in our government. And lastly, my opinion on if Trump is going to try to push this across the finish line, like, I think these checks actually have a shot at happening. Trump is a businessman, and he knows if he can get this done, especially early on in his term, he's going to buy back the trust of the Americans everywhere, and they're going to have more faith in him for getting this across the finish line. Him and Elon Musk are under a lot of fire right now, and I think that if they did this, it will calm Americans and give them a better perspective across Americans everywhere. So that's my thoughts, but I'm curious to know your thoughts. Let me know in the chat. Are you in favor of these $5,000 stimulus checks? Do you think people will actually use them to save versus spend, which will cause massive inflation? And do you think that Trump and Elon Musk can get this done before the end of the year? Let me know all that in the comments below, and I'll see you all on the next episode.